Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Robertson bringing you an update video for Winter 2018. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas and are enjoying this wonderful festive season. As with before, I myself will be taking a short break during this time to spend it with my friends and family. I do have to apologise though, as I'd initially planned to record this video about a week or two before Christmas, but unfortunately I came down with the cold and flu virus that's doing the rounds over here in the UK at the moment, and ended up with a bad cough and croaky voice. So as you can imagine, I had to delay this update video until I was able to speak a little better and not choke and wheeze after each sentence. Anyway, moving on swiftly, as most of you have probably already guessed, we're nearing the end of the Space Engineers series Into the Unknown, and there's only about 1 or 2 episodes left before the final curtain falls on this epic story. As I mentioned in a previous update video, most of it has already been recorded, but here's the thing. I've just had my sister-in-law and younger brother come back to me a few weeks ago asking if it's possible for them to have a small voice acting part in the series before it comes to a close. And being the gracious content creator that I am, I have politely agreed. So there's a good chance I may re-record a few scenes in the next episode in order to accommodate a few more lines being spoken by 1, possibly 2 members of the CDF. This does mean, however, that there may be a slight delay in the next episode being released, as my younger brother and his wife are both full-time parents to 4 rather boisterous children, so they'll have to work around what little free time they have between juggling their jobs and their kids' activities in order to get any recording done. And I'll not be so cruel as to ask them to do anything during the festive season, as there's a very good chance they'll just not have the free time. The good news is that once they're done, it does mean there'll be a few more voices to add to the cast of the series, which is always a good thing. And it also means that some of my amazing family will get to share in this incredible experience. And who knows, maybe in the future they'll even start a YouTube channel of their own. In other news, with regards to Empyrion Galactic Survival, I am pleased to announce that the dev team have released Alpha 9.0 to the public, which adds some cool new features, including AI factions that now have their own territory and reputation system, improved weapon handling, a logistics menu to help with transferring items to and from your vehicles and bases, and levelled NPCs, although that one may or may not be a good thing. I personally prefer not to have cookie-cutter enemies with floating numbers above their heads to tell me how tough they are. Instead, I just prefer to have a different selection of enemies that look visually different, that can be found in certain locations that you just know, either by looking at them or through trial and error, that they're going to kick your ass. The whole levelled NPC thing made popular by certain RPGs and online games just feels artificial and breaks the immersion for me, but that's just the way the developers want to take it, so I guess they must have their reasons. There's a whole slew of minor fixes, tweaks and additions, so for the full list, please don't hesitate to check out their Steam page for more details. Next on the list, we have the release of the next game in the X series by Egosoft, titled X4 Foundations. After the disappointment that was X Rebirth, Egosoft have gone back to the roots and taken a look at what made their previous games successful and used what they learned in the creation of X4, which is the latest in their line of elite-style space, action-adventure and empire-building games. From what I've seen so far, it looks very impressive, but as with the previous titles in that series, it's been rushed out way too soon, and as a result it's got more than its fair share of bugs and glitches that need to be fixed before it can be considered a finished game. But saying that, Egosoft do have an excellent track record of slowly patching up their games over time and releasing a significant amount of content to them in the process. And from the looks of things, it seems as though X4 Foundations will follow that trend, as the developers themselves have said that they plan on releasing DLC further down the line that adds more content, including additional alien races and sectors for the players to explore. So that definitely sounds promising. There's a good chance I may purchase this one at some point, but I'll be giving it at least a few months more before doing so, just so that when I do buy it, most of the game-breaking bugs should, for the most part, be fixed. The next game I'm going to mention is Mount and Blade Bannerlord. Yeah, it's not been released yet, and it feels like we've been waiting for quite some time now, but the good news is that all the footage and dev blogs I've seen thus far seem to indicate that there's a good chance it could well come out within the next year. All it seems they've got left to do is add a few extra features, such as the ability to start a family and have them take over if your character dies, and polish what's already there. Sadly, I don't really have any idea as for the timescale as to how long it'll take them to get this done, as the project lead does seem to be something of a perfectionist, especially when it comes to details such as the UI. But if you're keen on staying informed, then you can either check out their website over at taleworlds.com or visit my esteemed colleague on YouTube called Resonant, who posts frequent update videos on the development of this incredible looking game. Next on the agenda, as many of you have probably already seen by now, the latest DLC for Ark, Survival Evolved, was released last month, aptly named Extinction. It's set on a post-apocalyptic version of Earth, and looks as though it could be the final DLC, as the final boss fight and cinematic brings the ongoing story arc that's present throughout the original game and its DLC to an epic conclusion. So for all of you here that are fans of the series and haven't already done so, then feel free to check this one out or have a look at one of the many playthroughs done by some of the other content creators on YouTube to see what you think. I myself might give it a shot at some point in the future, but again, it depends on how much free time I have. Now, for the next item, unfortunately, with the games industry, you have to take the good with the bad, and this year we've had some amazing games like Kingdom Come Deliverance and Red Dead Redemption 2, but we've also had some absolute stinkers, such as Fallout 76 and Atlas. These are two games that were released as AAA titles, but are of such poor quality and are in such an unplayable state that they really should never have seen the light of day. And those responsible for releasing them in such a state should hang their heads in shame. And so too should the content creators on YouTube that have been shamelessly promoting and shilling this game. Essentially, they've been acting as stooges to the devs and promoting such horrendous travesties of gaming software. Now, I don't even know where to begin when explaining why both these titles are so bad. You really have to just watch the footage to see for yourself. But instead, I'm going to suggest that you check out what my colleague Mac from WorthaBuy has to say about them, as he puts it into words that pretty much sums everything up. Now, while I don't always agree with Mac, I feel that he has pretty much hit the nail on the head with his reviews for both Fallout 76 and Atlas. Atlas especially should really have just been kept in development for at least another 6 months and then sold as a $20 DLC for Ark, in my opinion, not as a full price standalone unfinished mess of a game.
Who cares about the words? F it, the words. Is it worth a buy, guys? No, it's a big pile of fucking shite. Thanks for watching.
But fear not, dear viewers, for there is, however, light at the end of the tunnel. There was a hidden gem of a game that I found, an indie game no less, that's just hit version 1.0 and has been an absolute joy to play. And that's the wonder that is Kenshi. For those of you here that are not familiar with Kenshi, which is no surprise given how AAA titles tend to eclipse their indie counterparts, despite them often being vastly superior. Kenshi is a post-apocalyptic, free-roaming, squad-based RPG, focusing on open-ended sandbox gameplay features rather than a linear story. The best way for me to describe it is that it's Mad Max meets Darklands, with a little Baldur's Gate, Mountain Blade and Diablo thrown in for some good measure. What impresses me so much with this game isn't just the extremely detailed and open world that you're part of, it's the fact that you can pretty much do almost anything you want. Want to play it solo and try to be a lone wolf, struggling to survive against all odds? You can do that. Want to recruit a small army, train them up with the goal of becoming bandits that raid, plunder and kill anyone you come across? You can do that as well. Or maybe you want to build your own town, complete with mines, workshops, farms, and even hire guards to defend your walls with deadly harpoon guns. Yep, you can even do that too. The game isn't without its flaws though, because despite being set in a post-apocalyptic future, there's no mounted combat or vehicles, and the pathfinding can still be an issue, especially with large squads with more than 15 people in them. But given that it's made by a small indie studio with a small team, this is still extremely well done and has already given me more than 100 hours of enjoyment. What I will say is that this game isn't for everyone, and anyone looking for a quick fix will most likely find Kenshi to be too frustrating, as when you start off, you'll be extremely weak, and even homeless bands of starving bandits will beat the living crap out of you if you're not careful. But one of the things that I do like is that, unlike Empyrion, which I mentioned earlier in this video, Kenshi uses skill-based stats to determine how powerful characters are or how proficient they are at doing something, which means that you actually have to do certain tasks in order to level them, much as it is in Kingdom Come Deliverance. And enemies you encounter won't have magic level numbers floating above their heads telling you how powerful they are. No, instead they just have stats and the gear that they're using. So you need to be able to judge for yourself, or find out the hard way, whether or not you'll be able to take them on in a fight. I'm not ashamed to admit that in the first few playthroughs of Kenshi, I spent most of my time running away from the bandits and wild dogs and letting either the hired mercs that follow the various trade caravans or the nearby city guards do most of the fighting for me. Anyway, I can thoroughly recommend Kenshi to anyone else that's a big fan of third-person squad-based open-world survival games, and you can grab it right now for less than $30 on Steam, and I can safely say it's worth every penny. Well, that pretty much covers it with regards to the gaming related stuff. Now it's time for this video's Q&A segment. Well, the first question for tonight comes from Apache Smith, who asks, what is the most realistic space combat sim you've ever played? If by that you mean a game where spacecraft fight against each other using realistic physics, orbital mechanics and weaponry, then I would have to say that without a doubt it would have to be Children of a Dead Earth by Q-Switched Productions. I kid you not, that game is so detailed it even has a guide on said orbital mechanics, weaponry, nuclear physics, rocket science and everything else you'll need to play. The game itself features various missions which require the player to construct an appropriate ship in order to achieve their objectives, which can be tricky if you don't know what you're doing. Sadly, despite what Hollywood and previous sci-fi games, including Space Engineers, would have us believe, space is not an ocean, and in reality spacecraft won't be firing broadsides at each other from a few kilometres away. Instead, battles will be conducted at well beyond visual range, and the most common weapons will most likely be missiles, lasers, and particular types of railguns, and I'm glad to say that this game portrays that exceptionally well. And best of all, there's no Battlestar Galactica or Star Wars style space fighters anywhere to be seen. The closest you'll get to those are unmanned drones that make a pass at their target at a great many kilometres per second. While it doesn't exactly make for a great space opera, it does provide a refreshing change from the ridiculous tropes we've been forced to endure over the last 40 years or so. And for those who are interested in taking a look at this game, you can grab it on Steam or visit their website at childrenofadeadearth.com, which I'll also provide a link to in the description below. The next question comes from Goodbye Coco, who asks, have you considered a Let's Play of Subnautica? The answer to that is, yes, I certainly have considered it, but one of the things that's put me off is that pretty much every YouTuber and their dog have already done a Let's Play on it. More so since many of them have done so throughout its development. Plus, I'm not a huge fan of ocean-only worlds. Don't get me wrong, from what I've seen the different biomes are all strikingly beautiful, and you even get to venture forth onto some floating islands at several points during the game. And while I'm not adverse to exploring underwater, I don't like being confined to it, and much prefer to do my adventuring on either terra firma or outer space, as I feel you just have more freedom in those particular environments. The next question comes from Pixel Dog, who asks, have you taken a look at Rising World? The answer to that is, actually yes, I've seen a few quick videos of it and a news update saying that they were going to be adding hostile NPCs at some point soon, so I may take a closer look later on. It very much looks like a more graphically advanced version of Minecraft, minus the Ender Dragon and creepers of course. The RadioMan03 has done some excellent YouTube videos of him playing it, and no doubt I'll be watching more of those to see how the game progresses. And if it ends up being something I'd like to play, then you can be sure I'll have a quick shot at it and see if it's actually any good before I report back to you guys on my findings, of course. The next question comes from the wonderfully anonymous John Doe, who asks, why only 720p? It looks like 480p on my 2K screen and my eyes hurt. Please give us 1080p at least. The answer to that is, why 720p? Because not everyone has super fast fibre optic broadband or a 2K screen. I personally only have access to ADSL at the moment, and a more than suitably large 1920 by 1080 screen, so I tend to play most of my YouTube videos in either 720p or 480p in cinema mode rather than full screen, otherwise I would spend half the time watching it buffer. But saying that, I will still upload videos in 1080p if they are quite small, like this one for instance. Unfortunately, I tend to get those sorts of questions either from kids or, dare I say it, from older people who are perhaps a little too spoilt and entitled and don't realise that not everyone else in the world is as fortunate as they are. Besides, 720p is also known as Standard HD, which is already better than the original DVD movies that came out shortly before Blu-ray. And if that is really making your eyes hurt, then it's probably a sign that you're just sitting too close to your oversized sodding screen, you muppet. Anyway, moving on swiftly. For the next question, Super Hornet 92 asks, why did Captain Varys give a Bond-style exposition? For those of you that aren't aware, this is in reference to Season 3 Episode 10 of Into the Unknown, where the pirate captain, Maximilian Varys, explains to Captain Robertson and Marshal Gordon how he survived having a ship destroyed earlier in the series, and how he ended up in 82 Aerodynamic. This was done essentially to bring everyone up to speed, especially for those that missed the pre- and mid-season cinematics where that particular side of their story was explained. They were easily missed as they're not actually included in the Into the Unknown playlist. I may change that in future.
Besides, dear viewers, it seems that everyone loves Brian Blessed, so I thought it would be a good idea to give him some more time on the air and all that, yes?
I kid you not, guys, I've actually had viewers request that I include him as a future character if I ever do another series after Into the Unknown, which I might be inclined to do given how insanely popular he's become, so yeah, I guess I'll just play it by ear. The next question comes from Amy Warner, who asks, what will you be playing for your next survival series? The answer to that is, I have no idea. I'm still bouncing around a few ideas right now, but there's been some strong suggestions for either Empyrion or Subnautica, but I'm also keen on something a little more down to earth, as I've been doing a predominantly outer space themed sci-fi series these last few years. Once I've got some more free time, I'll have a look at what's available out there, and if I like it, and it's not going to be a nightmare to work with, like bloody Space Engineers or modded Minecraft, then there's a good chance I might do a series on it. As I mentioned in a previous video, doing it from a first-person, found-footage, role-playing sort of theme seems to be very popular with my viewers, so I may stick to that format for the next series as well. The next question comes from Klein0403, who asks, do you go to any games conferences either in the UK or the US? The answer to that is, unfortunately not, as I don't really have the free time for it, and it's really more the realm of dedicated gamers, YouTubers or games journalists. If someone either gifted me tickets or paid for me to attend one of those things, then that certainly would be different. But unfortunately, as you're all no doubt aware, I'm a very busy man with many prior commitments, so the likelihood of me even being able to attend something like that would be extremely slim, but not impossible. And the last question for tonight comes from Kingface, who asks, I keep seeing posts from you in the comments asking people to stop trolling, but I can't see any. Well, the answer to that is because it's most likely I've deleted it. Sadly, as I get more viewers and subscribers, it's inevitable that we get more obnoxious twats appearing on the channel. But thankfully, due to the relatively serious nature of the content I produce and the excellent community surrounding it, they do tend to be far and few between, and it doesn't take long before I spot offensive or inflammatory posts and promptly deal with them. Luckily, I've been blessed with having an absolutely amazing group of subscribers and core viewers on this channel. They're an entirely different breed compared to the obnoxious teen brats I had in my old Baraban gaming channel, and as such there's usually only a handful of times I have to deal with any spam or offensive posts on the comment section each time I release a new video. And I personally think that this is absolutely wonderful. So here's a big shout out to all my viewers and subscribers out there for being such a great crowd. You guys really are the best. Well, that pretty much concludes this session's Q&A segment, and indeed tonight's channel update video. I would just like to end by wishing all of my incredible viewers and amazing subscribers out there a very happy new year. I really hope you guys enjoy the rest of your holidays, and I look forward to seeing you all again in 2019. So, once again, this is Robertson, signing off.